This is Guido Basso, Canadian trumpeter, flugelhornist, arranger, composer, and conductor. Now, if you're looking for a jazz trumpeter that attacks the trumpet and makes love to the flugelhorn, you came to the right place. Now, this video will examine the life and music of Guido Basso. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to the life and music of Guido Basso. Guido Basso, born September 27, 1937, died February 13, 2023, was a Canadian jazz musician who was a member of Rob McConnell's Boss Brass Big Band. He was a trumpeter, flugelhornist, arranger, composer, and conductor. Guido Basso was born in Montreal, Quebec. He grew up in the Little Italy neighborhood of Montreal in an Italian-Canadian family. He began playing the trumpet at the age of 9. He studied at the Conservatoire of Musique du Québec à Montréal. His professional music career started in his teens under the name Stubby Basso. During his early 20s, Basso performed regularly at the El Morocco in Montreal and played in bands led by Murray Kay. Singer Vic Damone discovered Basso playing at the El Morocco, then included him on a tour from 1957 to 1958. Basso had a professional career as a composer, conductor, arranger, trumpeter, flugelhornist, and harmonica player. The Canadian Encyclopedia wrote that Basso was one of Canada's preeminent jazz trumpeters, and he was credited with the theory that one attacks a trumpet and makes love to a flugelhorn. In 1958, he joined singer Pearl Bailey and her husband, drummer Louis Bellson, touring North America with them and their orchestra. Basso returned to Canada and settled in Toronto in 1961 instead of obtaining a permanent residency in the United States and the likelihood of required enlistment in the United States Army. Basso then studied at the Royal Conservatory of Music during the early 1960s. In 1963, he became conductor of the CBLT Nightcap, a job he held until 1967. He subsequently held a number of music director positions with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC, as well as being active as a performer. His work at CBC included Barris and Company, 1968-1969, Mallets and Brass in 1969, with vibraphonist Peter Appleyard, music director of Afternoon 1969 to 1971, and leading orchestras playing big band music on In the Mood 1971 and 1972 and Bandwagon 1972 and 73. He organized and led big band concerts at the CNE Bandshell featuring Dizzy Gillespie, Quincy Jones, Woody Herman, Benny Goodman, Count Basie, and Duke Ellington. Basso was a charter member of Rob McConnell's Boss Brass, playing with the band for over 20 years. Basso also played in big bands led by Ron Collier and Phil Nimmons. Basso was married to Kristen and had one daughter, Maya Basso Noble, who was a musician and songwriter. Maya died of cancer in September 2013. Guido Basso died in Toronto on the 13th of February 2023 at the age of 85. Basso was named a member of the Order of Canada in 1994. His citation cited him as an advocate for the arts and an inspiration to young musicians. He is generous with his time and talent, running workshops and clinics, and lending his name and expertise to worthy causes. He received the Queen Elizabeth II Golden Jubilee Medal in 2002 and the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal in 2012. Basso won the Juno Award for Traditional Jazz Album of the Year, Turn on the Stars, in 2003, and the second Juno Award for Traditional Jazz Album of the Year, Lost in the Stars, in 2004. On a personal note, Guido Basso planted an artistic idea in my mind in the late 80s that is now, for me, just coming to fruition. Now, I'm just going to explain it. I picked up a trumpet in 1978. The next 5 years of my life, I listened to every trumpet player under the sun. Guido Basso, being from Toronto, Canada, very close to where I grew up, there was an album that he put out in 1978 called And All That Latin Jazz. I loved that album, a lot of flugelhorn, some trumpet on it. I would have bumped into Guido and seen him play a number of times over the next 15 years in assorted Toronto jazz clubs like the Rex, George's, Bourbon Street. I would have seen him probably with Rob McConnell also and the Boss Brass. Now, I'm gonna fast forward now to the late 80s. I was attending University of Guelph, about an hour outside of Toronto, Canada. We had this bar on campus at the university called the Bull Ring. Probably the coolest dance bar I had been to. And what we would do, we'd study in the library till 10 p.m. Then we would walk over to the bar and we would dance at this dance club bar from 10 p.m. till 1 a.m. And then we'd get kicked out of the bar. But they had this special kind of thing called the Bull Ring All-Nighter, where they would kick you out at 1 a.m. and then you could line up again at the front of the Bull Ring, the dance club, and come in and dance from 1 till 3 a.m. There was no alcohol, but if you met some cool people between 12 and 1 and they wanted to come back in, you'd say, hey, you coming to the all-nighter? You'd get kicked out at 1, you'd go line up at the front of the bar, you would come in and you would dance in from 1 till 3, spend some time with some people, and then at 3 they'd kick you out. And I remember getting on my motorcycle, riding home, and getting back to my place around 3:15 in the morning, but I was a little bit too hyped to go to bed because I'd just been dancing for the last number of hours, some very up music, and I would turn on the TV and there was this channel called Global, Channel 3 at the time. It was a TV station out of Toronto, Canada, and from 3 till 5 a.m. they had this program called Night Ride. And what it was a guy that was in a car with a camera, a video camera, shooting his drive going through Toronto, Canada. So it was basically just pointed out the front windshield, and he would be stopping at lights at 2 in the morning, whatever, in Toronto, and you'd see people coming out of the bar. Then he would hang a right, he'd be going down Yonge Street, you'd see Sam the Record Man there and the famous Yonge Street and all the stores there, they'd be all lit up. You'd see people walking on the streets, stumbling from being drunk, coming out of a club. It was just an unbelievably kind of cool thing. It was a precursor to slow TV. Slow TV is kind of where people watch a fireplace for the next 5 hours, or some babbling brook in Ireland, and you just kind of watch the water kind of go down this little river. And it was a precursor to this nothingness, just this everydayness of a video on TV. Well, this global television network that shot this video, that was just out the front of a vehicle. I later learned it was a Jeep that they kind of put down the front windshield, and that's why you couldn't see the front windshield. And this guy had this big 70-pound video camera, and he was just taking video of the goings on of Toronto, Canada, going up and down these kind of city streets in downtown Toronto. But it was the music along with that video of driving around Toronto that made the video. The music was Guido Basso with some mellow jazz combined with this guy driving around Toronto, Canada in the late 80s. I would watch this from 3 to 5, just winding down from the dance club, and I fell in love with, number one, slow TV and this idea of fusing this mellow jazz with somebody just driving around a city. It was so hypnotic. I fell in love with Guido Basso, and that idea of combining some mellow jazz, especially trumpet mellow jazz of Guido Basso, with driving or walking around any place in the world, which later became known as slow TV. The Norwegians really took it to another level in the 2000s, but Guido Global Television Network, the way you fused that, you made it so cool back in the day. It planted the artistic idea that now what I do on this channel is I try to recreate that Guido Basso vibe that he did back in the late 80s in Toronto, driving around, just seeing the normal goings on of midnight to 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning in Toronto that this guy filmed, along with fusing this mellow jazz music with it, was hypnotic. It was one of the coolest experiences. Planted that idea that now I am trying to recreate as much as I can on this channel. I'm going to try and put as much music, whether it be driving or walking around different parts of the world, to fuse these two ideas together that Global and Guido Basso put together in the late 80s, way ahead of his time. Guido, loved the music, you inspired me, you inspired that idea. Guido and Global Television Network, thank you very much. Please watch my channel to see my attempt at fusing walking or driving around cool places in the world along with some music. Thank you, Guido. I hope you enjoyed this video on Guido Basso, one of Canada's greatest trumpet players and flugelhornists. If you've got a band or musician you'd like featured on this channel, pop it in the comments section. I'll make another video. I want to say thanks for dropping by. Rock on.